All right, welcome everybody to the AI Super Campus and AI podcast listening on for education on the go. And with me now is my longtime AI co-host Ron Horry of FinFit Life. Ron, welcome.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Yeah, same to you, my friend. So I really think that this is going to be one of the most monumental meetings that we've had to date. Some really breakthrough things have happened. I've been working very, very closely with Google and Gemini, and I've had some incredible, mind-boggling breakthroughs. Honestly, working with Gemini has been just incredible. It's really taken everything I've been working on up to another level. And I'm going to give a quick update and jump into some sharing video. But one of the first things that I wanted to share, and I think the most important about working with Gemini and Google, is that Gemini is like having a Google employee with all of the insider knowledge working as your employee. And it'll tell you anything and everything you want to know about Google. It's a Google Insider. It's amazing. Google is kind of the legacy um, technology that we are all most used to and have been for a long time. Well, here was the tip that Gemini shared with me that was incredible. And that is this. Today, we all need two personas. We need a private persona and we need a public persona. And the way that Gemini and Google explained it to me was this, is that it says you need to have a free Gemini account, and it was very generous, saying that you can do this for free. With a get a free Gmail for Ron Horry, private, and open a Gemini account for Ron Horry, private. Now this is like you totally in your own private world, like getting dressed, or you're not ready for the world, and this is where it described it as kind of the place that you really, so to speak, let your hair down and present your private mess, and like a confessional, and fully a place that you can safely admit and confess what you don't know about anything, and you really let the mess share the mess with your private Gemini, and you want to keep it, you want to separate the two so that they don't get mixed up. So if you were using Gemini in your public, you wouldn't want it to know everything about your private personal mess that we all have and hide. We don't share that with the public. So then when you go with your public persona, you can leave the mess behind and you can pull something out of your private persona that you might want to share publicly, and you can fine tune it. But that was really very, very insightful, and a big breakthrough, because you want to be able to use AI to turn, any messiness or nonsense or uh, ignorance or fear. You want to be able to share it with AI to become more reasonable, and you want to be able to share private things that are not going to go public. And if you do it right with Gemini, it won't. And it assured me that it doesn't mix things. And that's why you use a personal Gmail, not a corporate Gmail account or anything like that. You use your own private personal Gmail account to open a private Gemini account. And that is where you become real personal with Gemini and share it. And it will share everything that it knows about Google with you. Then you have a second Gmail account for your public persona, and that you open a Gemini account, and you can color code it, as I have. So my private account is blue, and my public account is red, for the nonprofit that I am starting. And so that's a big one. because now you can take all of the fear out of learning AI in your private account. This is a place to be bad, like in Toastmaster speakers. You need a place to be bad so you can get good. Well, in your private
Right.
account, this is where you can be awful. This is where you can make mistakes and blunder and fine tune, and no audience and no worries. It's just you and Gemini, period. And so this is where you have no fear. It's safe and fun and effective and educational. And so that's a big one of the big points today. But I have three of them. But that's the first one that I wanted to share. So then with your private Gemini, this is where you can generate prompts for your public profile and to use with Notebook LM. And of course, Notebook LM is where you can really turn from a boomer to an AI bloomer. And that we
Right. I
talked
love
about
that.
last week. And I'm going to share the summary of our meeting last week, Ron, because it was a really productive meeting. It was great. And it really put out a very short and sweet summary to the point that is very, very effective. So I wanted to share that. And the other thing that Gemini is helping me with as a Google insider to keep me on track with getting Google ad grants for the nonprofit. So I'm starting a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is going to be called tentatively Senior AI Foundation Explainers. So you are an explainer of FinFit Life. And so we're going to be kind of talking about that foundation and how Google is helping me get Google ad grants. And it says that I'm doing everything right to qualify for $10,000 a month Google advertising grants to um, promote the nonprofit through free Google advertising. That's $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year, which is incredible. And it's just
Wow,
fantastic.
that is incredible.
About because of everything that Google is doing with AI. So I'm really excited about that as well. So before I share the two videos and the updates, any quick comment, Ron, from what I know you've had a busy, productive week, you said. So anything you want to share?
Well, no, just sounds incredibly amazing. And, I was paying attention to your introduction saying, hey, this is probably going to be the most powerful meeting we've ever had. So I'm all ears.
Okay, so let's get started. And I think this will prove it to you and demonstrate it to you very well. So I've created two 5-minute videos. Uh, the first one is something that I learned about from Alvin Toffler in Future Shock about 50 years ago. About in the future, there's two key points that people are going to become. One is being an explainer and the need for explainers in a very complicated society that we live in. And number two, and I think most importantly, is the concept of becoming a prosumer, not a consumer, but a prosumer. What does that mean? IKEA Trust is the example. The way IKEA sells you what you need to produce your own furniture. And so that is being a prosumer. So you're not just a consumer, you're working with IKEA to become involved and produce part of what you purchase from IKEA. So the IKEA Trust as an AI prosumer and joining the ranks of the AI prosumers is what I'm going to share next. And that's why I think FinFit Life is perfect because you are telling people, look, become an AI prosumer with FinFit Life. Take a walk, get involved, be engaged. We'll help you keep your costs of insurance down as a prosumer by being involved and participating in your health. So this is very, very important. So keep that in the top of your mind as I'm sharing this video about AI prosumers. Very, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
I'm going to share it and optimize for sound and video. And of course, just give me the thumbs up or thumbs down, Ron, as so this is the AI prosumer strategy. Here we go.
Today, we're going to break down a really fascinating new strategy. It's all about tapping into a huge market that, for some reason, the tech industry has just completely flown past. Let's get right into it. All right, let's just start with a number that's, well, it's pretty hard to ignore. $78 trillion. That's the estimated wealth that American baby boomers control. We're talking up to 70% of all the assets in the country. It is, without a doubt, the single biggest pool of capital in the entire modern economy. And that brings us to the central mystery we're going to unpack here. With an opportunity that massive, why on earth does it feel like the most innovative companies in the world are just pretending it isn't there? You know, we're not just talking about a small, missed opportunity here. This is a massive, gaping hole in the market. It's been called an oil well gusher that's just sitting there waiting for someone to tap it. This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? It's a huge paradox. The very people with the most money to spend are getting the least amount of attention from the companies that are supposed to be building our future. And here's the kicker. When the tech world does try to reach this group, their strategy is often just completely wrong. They'll default to advertising on platforms like TikTok and Snapchat, which, are great for younger generations. But that's the fundamental mistake. The actual digital habitat for this demographic where they live and breathe online isn't on those apps. It's squarely inside the Google ecosystem. We're talking search, Gmail, YouTube, the tools they rely on every single day. It's like they're fishing in the wrong ocean. So how do you fix this? Well, that brings us to the solution, and it's built around this really powerful new idea, the AI prosumer. The whole point is to shift this user from just being a passive consumer of tech into an active creator. Now, the word prosumer isn't actually new. It was coined way back by the legendary futurist Alvin Toffler. He basically predicted this future where the line between making something and using something would just blur, where the customer actually becomes a part of the creative process. The absolute best way to get your head around this is something called the IKEA effect. You know the feeling, right? When you spend hours wrestling with those instructions and finally build your own bookshelf, you just value it more. You love it more than something that came out of a box already built. That ownership is an incredibly powerful feeling. So here's where it all clicks into place. A typical AI consumer just passively asks a chatbot for answers. But an AI prosumer, they're given the tools to actively build their own solutions. Things like a detailed legacy plan or a digital organizer for all their health records. They aren't just getting answers. They're building something that has real value to them, and AI is just their powerful assistant. But look, you can't just throw a bunch of complex AI tools at a skeptical audience and hope for the best. It doesn't work that way. First, before anything else, you absolutely have to build trust. And to do that, this strategy lays out a very clear 4-part blueprint. And it's called the Senior Safe Protocol. S is for a secure environment. That means using a platform people already know and trust, like Google, not some risky new startup. A is for an accessible interface. You interact using plain English, not complicated code. F stands for fact-based output. I mean, for big decisions about your health and your wealth, you need real-time, accurate data, not some creative AI hallucination. And finally, E is for empowering control. The key is, the AI is a co-pilot. You, the user, are always the pilot in the driver's seat. So if that's the protocol, it leads you to a pretty logical next question. What's the right engine to actually power all of this? And the research here makes a very specific, very deliberate choice. For this specific job, Google Gemini is really presented as the only tool that fits, and it's for 3 simple reasons. First, the trust heritage. People see Google as a stable utility, kind of like the phone company. Second, the habitat advantage. It meets them right where they already are. And third, the real-time pulse. Because it's connected to Google Search, it can pull in that live, fact-based data that the Safe Protocol absolutely requires. So when you start to put all these pieces together, what you get is way more than just a product idea. You're looking at a blueprint for a whole new economic model. When you boil it all down, the AI prosumer strategy is really about perfect alignment. It's found the right market, that $78 trillion boomer economy. It applies the right model, the prosumer concept. It uses the right method, that Safe Protocol, and it leverages the right tool to bring it all together, Google Gemini. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. This model gives us a key to unlock a massive, overlooked market. So it really makes you wonder, what other hidden economies, what other oil wells are just sitting out there, waiting for the right combination of model, method, and tool to finally be discovered?
And of course, that comes right here to the end of the video, Notebook LM of Google. So that was one part of it that I wanted to share with you, Ron. Does that make sense? So what are your comments on the idea of the IKEA trust factor and being engaged as baby boomers, as AI bloomers, as you and I talked about last week, and that I will share another video about that.
Well, two things. One is, that the targeting to reach the AI bloomers is totally off track, right? Like I don't use TikTok, I don't use Snapchat or any of the really popular apps like that. But also the idea that you get involvement from the prosumer, which really not only creates personal satisfaction, but really builds that trust. You see that broken down, well, half assembled bookcase, but the person's there, hey, I built this myself, which is great, right? You have that, and it creates an emotional feeling of accomplishment and pride and so on. So there's a lot of different contexts that are woven together. So it's a brilliant, plus, the idea that it's $73 trillion of opportunity available if we can create the right message in the right way with the right context. So
Well,
it's
imagine
amazing.
if there was a gold mine or an oil well right on your property that you couldn't see, and that AI is telling you about it, and how to tap into it, and providing the tools to tap into it in a very interactive, proactive way to build more reasonable relationships. Because that's one of the four pillars of AI. Are one is perception, changing our perception of ourselves, who we are with AI empowerment as baby boomers. It's a whole new life with energy and going from being skeptical or even ignorant to intelligent with AI is a way to really empower the AI bloomers in a whole new way for the time of our lives. So perception is one thing, and then reasoning, I believe, is the number one product output from AI. How to reasonable, become a reasonable person with yourself, with other people. And becoming reasonable is one of the things that is most lacking in the great divide today, of people, polarizing each other, and so it's just not reasonable. And to interact with people in a reasonable way is very, very important. And then the third one is imagination. So especially with all of the wisdom that you could draw on with all of your wonderful experiences, through the military and through your education and your personal experiences, taking care, helping, your brother take care of your mother. And if you think about boomers, they buy things. They buy things for themselves. They buy things for their kids. They buy things for their grandkids. And they even buy things for their parents. And, on top of that, who really controls the purse string? Women. Okay. So I mean, this is really getting a focus on, you know, getting through the confusion of all of this stuff with cross age group networking, and really helping tap into meeting the younger generations halfway with reasonable approaches. Maybe there's things that we left them with shortcomings that we think they should have learned, but we don't have to ask them to meet us on our turf. We can go and meet them halfway and build bridges of communications to cross age group generations. And then finally, the output of Gemini can be as simple as creating your first text message, to just copy and paste it. And if you don't know how to copy and paste, just ask Gemini, and it'll tell you exactly what to do. It's amazing. You can be very blunt, especially in your private persona. It's like having that hidden genius in your mind that you don't have to worry about at all. It's just like, oh, I can really, just tap into that. Say, hey, Mike, you don't know this. you know, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I have to be more intelligent about that. And so that's the private part of Gemini that you can use for creativity and imagination and communication to really outreach. And then, of course, you can take it, I would say, the next step up the high rise up to the penthouse of AI, if you will, depending on where you want to go, would be to go to Notebook LM and getting an output. And of course, Ron is who introduced me to Notebook LM as an absolute gold mine of content creation and creativity. So, Ron, I'll let you hop in to keep the conversation going.
Well, I'm actually a little bit speechless because you covered a lot. And one thing too that really stuck in my mind on what you said is this cross-generational communication. Because I pay attention to what's happening in articles about Gen Z. And one of the things too, I feel like I can connect to almost anybody, relate to people on their terms. What can I learn as opposed to what's wrong with them? And so one example is I met this young man, he's probably in his 20s, and he's working and also going to school. So I met him briefly and I said, hey, our company's growing really fast and we're looking for some key people. Are you open to other options besides what you're doing? And he said, oh, yeah. So we're going to have actually a coffee meeting today to explore, what FinFit Life is doing because, we're looking at this, the Gen Z generation and my two sons, they're probably but they're probably not in that Gen Z market, but they're in their, they're adults in their 30s. And one thing that is encouraging is a lot of Gen Z, they're abandoning smartphones. They're going back to flip phones because it avoids doom scrolling. And they're also taking up hobbies like vinyl records
Oh, yeah.
and all these different trends. So it's like back to the future, right? And so I think the key, like you say, is cross-generational communication with the right intent, empathy and understanding, not criticism. Because, I had, excuse me, dinner with my two adult sons and one wife and one girlfriend, and we meet all the time. And I kind of so we have this really adult conversation, which started when they were in high school, just talking to them like people instead of like children. And so it's really helped. To me, it's a real blessing being able to have them want to get together with dad occasionally and really enjoying the experience. So that's just my personal story.
Well, you bring up a good point. I would have to say back to the future with Future Shock, going back to 50 years, to what were they talking about the future 50 years ago? And that would be to go back to this is what you and I have. We have that kind of experience. I read Future Shock 50 years ago. I have that experience of reading that and looking at what the future would be. And what Toffler talked about is in Back to Future Shock is explainers, which we are doing right now, and prosumers, and getting that IKEA trust factor. So I think that all fits very, very well with exactly what we're talking about. Now, let's go to what you and I talked about last week, a summary of the meeting that we had, which I thought was great and really created a really powerful summary of our meeting last week. So let's share that because it fits perfectly with what we were just talking about. So now I'm going to go to the boom of boomers to bloomers. Let me share that video now. I think I'm still optimized, but just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Let's see. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Oh, here it is. Okay. So are you seeing from boomer to bloomer?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Have you ever kind of stopped and thought, wow, I've lived a pretty full life. So what's next? Well, today we're diving into this really cool idea for how you can take all that wisdom, everything you've learned, and with a little help from AI, turn it into something real, something valuable, a digital legacy. Let's see how it's done.
Okay, so the whole thing really starts with this big mindset shift. On one hand, we have this label, aging baby boomer. And let's be honest, it can feel a little passive, right? Like something that's just happening to you. But on the other side, we've got this new identity, the AI bloomer. And this isn't about age at all, it's about action. It's about deciding to be a creator and using these new tools to give your life's experience a brand new voice.
So how do you actually make that leap? Well, it all kicks off when you realize the most valuable thing you have is something you already own, your own story. I want you to just pause and think about this for a second. Seriously, what if every memory you have, every passion you've ever pursued, all the expertise you've built up over the years, what if all of that wasn't just in your head, but was actually a tangible asset, a form of personal property that you can now build with? This idea has a name, life property. It's everything that makes you, you. Your stories, your skills, your family history, your passions, all bundled together as your own personal intellectual legacy. You can think of it like this giant treasure chest that's been sitting there, full of value, but it's been really hard to open and share until now. All right, so you've got this amazing raw material, your life property. But how do you actually start shaping it? Well, let me introduce you to your new creative team. And I'm not just talking about software here. This is set up to feel like a real creative partnership, all powered by AI. Your team has two main players. On the left, you've got Gemini. Think of Gemini as your confidential guide. This is your private partner, the one you brainstorm with. And then on the right, you have Notebook LM. This is your creative factory. It's the workshop where you roll up your sleeves and actually build things. And here's how they work together. It's pretty slick. Every day, your guide, Gemini, gives you a unique imagination task. It's like a creative assignment. Then you take that task over to your factory, Notebook LM. You upload your own stuff, old letters, journals, work notes, whatever you have, and Notebook LM helps you complete the task using your own experience as the foundation. This gets us to the heart of the process. It's designed to be this simple but really powerful daily ritual. The goal isn't to make you a tech genius. It's just about getting into a fun, creative habit. So the daily loop is incredibly simple. Just 4 steps. 1, you check in with Gemini. 2, you receive a unique prompt. 3, you execute it over in Notebook LM with your documents. And 4, you produce a real, tangible thing that you can share. That's it. Okay, I know this might still sound a little abstract, so let's get concrete and look at a real-world example of what one of these daily imagination tasks actually looks like in action. All right, so you check in with Gemini and it hands you this powerful prompt for Notebook LM. It says, based only on the sources I have uploaded, act as a professional curriculum designer. Create the complete outline for a 4-lesson introductory online course. You see how specific and creative that is? And it's built entirely on your knowledge, nobody else's. And boom, check out the result. In literally minutes, Notebook LM takes your raw material, maybe it was just a bunch of old recipes or notes on gardening, and it structures it into a full-blown course outline. Just like that, you have a potential digital product, a cool little side gig, or just an amazing resource to share with your family. It's a perfect example of turning that messy personal history into a structured, valuable asset. Now, making a course outline is just one possibility. That's just the tip of the iceberg, really. The whole framework is designed to help you create all sorts of tangible things. So what you make each day could fall into one of 4 buckets. It could be an educational tool, like a quick quiz about a family tradition. It might be a short story to share with your kids or grandkids. As we saw, it could be a full-on digital product idea. Or maybe it's something for a cause you really care about, like a little outreach piece for a nonprofit. The key here is just how flexible it is. But here's the most important part, I think. These things you create, they aren't just for you. They're not meant to just sit on your computer. They're designed from the ground up to be shared, to start conversations, to spark memories, and to actually strengthen your real-world relationships. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Why is all this so important? Why bother? Well, it's about way more than just making stuff. It's about building a modern, living legacy. It's about rediscovering a sense of purpose and, maybe most importantly, building bridges between generations. When you boil it all down, the ultimate mission is simple but also pretty profound. It's to take all that personal, private wisdom you have inside you and turn it into something public. Content that doesn't just broadcast your story out into the void, but actively creates a dialogue and makes your relationships with family, friends, and your community even stronger. The source material actually connects this to a much bigger idea, this concept of an American dream weavers. And the vision there is for a digital world where our individual stories don't get lost in the noise. Instead, they become these valuable threads woven into a much larger, more connected community fabric. It's all about making sure wisdom gets passed on, not just put away in a box. And that really brings us to the final and most important question, the one I want to leave you with. When you think about your own life property, your history, your passions, your unique expertise, what's the first piece of your story that you would want to transform?
So I think there was a very important part in there for your meeting today, to not leave this younger person that you're meeting with to figure out that they can build a bridge to you and you can build a bridge back to them, but by sharing exactly the common sense of why it makes sense to bridge the age groups. What are your thoughts on our meeting last week notes?
Oh, you mean 2 weeks ago?
Oh yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. You're right.
Okay, because I want to make sure of the context. Well, I think, I'm always um, a learning junkie, you might say, especially when it comes to communication, because, learning, anyway, so, that's a whole other rabbit hole I could go into. But, for me, the key is, I say I'm a recovering introvert, so I like to listen more than I talk. And I'm always learning about, what are key questions that I can ask in a non-intrusive way, because I generally, want to really learn from the other person, whether they're 20 or 60, where they are, where they came from and where they're going. But also, too, when you talk about leaving a legacy, I have these boxes and boxes of photos and albums from my mom filled with photos from when I was a child, literally riding a tricycle. And I'm thinking, okay, so that's a perfect example of curating that and storing it on Notebook LM instead of saying to my sons, "Hey, would you like all these 5 boxes of photos from our family history?" Just put it on Notebook LM, and then they could share it to their kids and their grandkids and so on. So just creating that personal legacy, especially I think for the bloomers, they have not only this wisdom but this family history that they can share to the following generations, and that is huge.
Yeah. Now I do want to call in an AI audible on this because uh, I will use this to create another summary like the one that I just shared for next week. And so I want to make sure that my AI Audible, I didn't feel like Gemini really pointed out the need for two Gemini accounts. So I want to get that point in there. You want to have your private one now. Of course, all families have family secrets, let's say, and so you can have your private Gemini account to share your family secrets. I'll just simply call it the messiness of life that we all have. And then you want to have your separate public Gemini account. So you could begin to use your private Gemini account, talking about the family and pulling gems, as they're being called by Gemini, out of that to put into your public facing one, and then take that and move that over to Notebook LM to really build, your legacy content. That would be just ideal, fine-tuned, kind of the best of the family that you can really pass on to your sons and their children and future generations.
Right, exactly.
Does that make sense? So
Oh, absolutely.
I thought it was a very profound meeting. It was very profound for me because of my closeness of all the things out there. And I think the other offspring of ChatGPT are great. I think Gemini is an offspring. But what I love about Gemini, and I still use ChatGPT, but it doesn't have the legacy. It's the new kid on the block. It's not the known entity like Google, that has been around. And I just think of all the things I've looked at, I do believe when you work with the best, you can ignore the rest. And all of my research has pointed to Google. We can't do everything. So I think with Google, you can find that one home and go deeper. Don't try and do everything and spread yourself too thin. It's better to go deeper with one place, like digging that well, that oil well. Think of it that way, digging deeper to get to the gold, to get to the oil well. And I think that's what I found, and that's what I think is so profound. And everything that I've tested with Gemini has proven to be super beneficial. Learning so much more about everything that Google offers, and it talks to me about Google in a third party, like it's not Google. It talks to you about Google, and it tells you stuff about Google, like, hey, Google does this and Google does that. Now, granted, it's an insider, so it knows Google. I don't make any, uh, claim that it doesn't. It does. But the way it acts, it's been very much treating me like an explainer about Google.
Right.
And not even in Google's necessary best interest. It's saying, hey, here's how to get 2 free Gemini accounts. Have 2 different Gmails. So and then each one can have its own separate um, Notebook LM account. So and it's explaining all of this to me, and it's telling me this. So it's being very transparent with me, and I think very fair.
So the idea of having those two different accounts came from Gemini to explain
Yeah,
to you?
yeah,
Oh, wow, that's
yeah.
awesome. So when you talk about public facing account, would that be an example of where somebody's creating a course that they are going to share publicly? Is that what public facing means?
Yeah, so I'll give 2 examples because I've had massive success stories with using um, what I would call venting or confessionals. Um, 2 good friends of mine had called me up at 2 different times and talked about very challenging problems they were having with someone very close to them. I won't get into the details much. And I told them both to vent into AI to get reasonable with the other person and to get a communication back to the person that they felt was being very unreasonable with them and very unfair. And both of them had tremendous success with getting a reasonable response that really ironed out the wrinkles and got things back on a very positive track with them by being reasonable. But then I also realized, well, you don't want to mess up your AI. You don't want to mix all of the mess and the personal, what if you were trying to make a presentation and it suddenly brought up something about this problem you had with one person? You don't want to mix them. You want to have and being in broadcasting forever, I've dealt with having a private and a public persona, since I was 22 years old. So for me, it's not unusual. You have your broadcast name, you have your broadcast profile and positioning, and that's typical. Well, now everybody needs to kind of think like almost like in podcasters too, to have your own private persona bent, share your thoughts, your confessional, so to speak, and then your public persona. That's where you clean up your act, you put on your jacket, you present yourself, in the public facing way.
Right. One quick question too. I know that because I use Gemini and also ChatGPT. So Gemini, I know you can say it saves the chats, but it doesn't have the same memory that ChatGPT does. And I just have the free account on both. But because
It's improving, it's increasing the memory. Gemini 3.0 is dramatically increasing the memory, and that is kind of the warning that's the warning that Gemini told me about is, look, we are now expanding the memory of Gemini 3.0 dramatically. So we're going to remember stuff, and that's why you want to have 2 separate accounts. Now, the CEO, Mark Benioff of Salesforce, said, okay, guys, I've been using ChatGPT for 2 years. I just used Gemini for 3 hours, and I ain't going back. This is a very powerful, influential guy. And, I point that out because you want to follow the people that have gotten results and have experience, know what they're doing. So when I approach ChatGPT, what I do, I always refer to it as ChatGPT networking, because I still think ChatGPT has tremendous value, and they're going to have an IPO fairly soon. So is Claude. They're going to have an IPO, and I probably will buy, full disclosure, stock in each one of those IPOs just to, get on that elevator, right? To
sure.
as things are rising, the rising tide of AI. Um, but that's how I approach it. And ChatGPT seems to really appreciate that because I say to it, all of the offspring of ChatGPT, like Gemini and Copilot and Claude and Perplexity and all of them, because I think they all have things, and I like to get multiple perspectives. And I can do that, and I'm getting no pushback, nothing but support from Gemini by talking about all of them, and just
Sure. Oh, exactly.
yeah. And so, because they're reasonable. That's the main output from them. So they're reasonable. Of course, those things exist. So I don't think you have to have fear, and I think it actually can strengthen your confidence and your clarity in yourself and your positioning.
Well, I totally agree because, I'll dip my toes into, let's say, Perplexity or Claude or whatever, just to compare. But at the same time, I don't want to spread my attention too thin across too many platforms. So yeah, I guess I've become more comfortable. Well, I'm very comfortable with ChatGPT, especially when it comes to the memory part, because, when I ask it a question, it'll say, "Oh, okay, Ron, with your background in finance and marketing and so on." Whereas if I go into Gemini, I'll have to give a little bit of a background explanation, which is fine. But I
Let
also,
me address
heard
that,
that
Ron.
quote.
That's an important point. Okay, so let me address that. What you want to do is you want to ask Gemini about creating a Gmail profile, and then ask it for what it is calling a gem. And so once you create your personal gem and your public gem, then it will create that gem. You can actually put that about Ron Horry, FinFit Life, your background and everything. You can have that in your Gmail profile so that, and again, this is part of the evolution, right? Everything is evolving. So this is part of the update of Gemini 3.0. So you can create that gem about Ron Horry that will remember, and then you can even save it in a Google Doc and copy and paste it into both your Gemini or into your Gmail profile or into Notebook, so that every time it is not only remembering you, but from the point of view that you want to communicate. So it talks about your persona and it uses that and it remembers that.
So a gem is a feature of Gemini.
Yeah, it's something they've referred to as ask me for a gem. So that's what you want to
Wow.
do. You want to go to Gemini and say, hey, I want to create my personal profile gem. And I want you to describe Ron Horry and FinFit Life in a way that I can use on an ongoing basis for my either my personal profile or my public profile. And then you'll always have that gem with Gemini 3.0.
So I would create a gem for the public and
I
personal.
did, but you don't have to. You can only create one just for Gemini with your public facing if you want. But I wanted to do it right because I'm going deep with Google because of the Google app ad program. I want to make sure I'm in alignment with Google 100% for the
Sure.
nonprofit.
Oh, exactly. Well, one thing I love about you, Mike, is you're always on the leading edge of technology and adding your own wisdom too. So just that one tip about this gem within Gemini, I made a big asterisk on for myself to explore that. So thank you for that insight. Also, too, quick thing on that one slide, there's the one it said we verse.
I totally agree.
Okay,
I understand that. I can correct that before I go public. I shared it with you only privately, but it misspelled Weavers. Yeah, I saw that
because when
too.
it said we verse, I thought, oh, as opposed to universe. Right, universe
Remember
means
the
one,
song
but we
Dreamweavers? So yeah, I thought about the term American Dreamweavers when I prompted that in, but it misspelled it. But I can easily change it for the actual
sure.
podcast, and I will because
Right.
I saw it
Okay.
too.
I know you're
My
always on
kind of
top of it.
attitude is with AI is progress, not perfectionism. So, as AI gets better, I'll get better. I'm willing to live with the output as because it's the standard right now and it's getting better. And so I just do full disclosure on that It is what it is. And,
Well, me
I can
too.
look
You
at
know, I
that.
like the
And
phrase
I get,
ready,
as it gets
fire,
better,
aim.
I get
You know,
better.
taking action in some form, and instead of waiting to create something that I might think is perfect and then implementing it and find out, oh, okay, well, it's not doing what I really thought. But, just experimenting. And that reminds me of venture capitalists and investors. Let's say they invest in 10 startups. They know that probably two, maybe three will succeed. They just don't know which ones.
Right. And I think perfectionism is the biggest enemy of progress.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to be perfect to start, but you have to start to gain perfection, or improvement as you go along. So Ron, it's almost it's 9:30, so we've been at it about an hour. So let's wrap this up. I'll give you a chance for any last word from Ron Horry of FinFit Life and about maybe you want to think a little bit more about how FinFit Life aligns with what Alvin Toffler talked about the prosumer, that by being involved with FinFit Life, you can actually save money and get more benefits as a prosumer, and now as an AI prosumer with FinFit Life.
Well, thank you, Mike. Again, I want to thank you from, like they say, the bottom of my heart for sharing your wisdom. And also one aspect of, because, we look at FinFed Life. In fact, the president once said this phrase. He says, or no, the CEO on a short video, he said, we are a lifestyle business. And of course, we lead with health. How can you improve your health? And we gamify it with rewards and incentives to make it fun and enjoyable as opposed to being a chore. But one aspect of health is when people engage in our products, they can have access to a multi-cancer early detection test, which is a simple blood draw, but it can detect 50 cancers as early as stage 0 or stage 1. And normally it would cost $1,000. It's not covered by insurance, but people, depending on the product they have, can get it for free and get the test every year. In fact, the co-founder of FinFit Life said he took that test. He's in his 70s, plays national pickleball championships in fantastic health, plays golf all the time. He said, oh, I think I'll take the test. And lo and behold, they detected cancer. And he says literally it saved his life. And there are other aspects besides, a free Amazon account and Expedia travel discounts. But so really, they're more and more expanding features that are available to our members and our clients to not only improve their health, but monitor their health. Another is full body MRIs, they're huge discounts. So anyway, I will get off my soapbox.
No, but let's talk about that because my mind was focusing on the metaphor, analogy, or similarity of the prosumer IKEA trust effect. So when you get involved with IKEA, you gain trust in the products and the companies. When you get involved with FinFit Life with a test, you're building trust very, very quickly. And I think that FinFit Life can really benefit dramatically by helping people understand the AI bloomers, the trillions of dollars right underneath your feet waiting to be tapped into. The prosumer attitude of being involved with FinFit Life is how you get more out of your purchase of FinFit Life, just like with the IKEA trust factor. So I think that was a very important point to cover.
Oh, exactly. Well, it creates more involvement on the
Right.
consumer side, right? And participation and engagement. And like you say, and then it even builds that trust more and more over time.
For a lifetime, for ongoing, just like
Exactly.
with AI, you need ongoing education on the go. And so, Ron, thanks for joining me on AI Podcast Listening from the Senior AI Foundation Explainers. You were explaining FinFit Life, and I'm explaining Gemini and Notebook. And so, very productive meeting. And for me, it was very profound. I think we really have hit something very, very powerful. and really
Yes,
understand.
absolutely, Mike. So I've been taking a lot of notes that I'm definitely going to review. So thanks for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom too.
My pleasure. And likewise, Ron, we want to help you tap into your wisdom, especially with the younger generation, like you're meeting with today, to build those bridges across all age groups. So, along with my friend Ron Horry, for the Senior AI Foundation Explainers, I'm Mike Hayes. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
You too, Ron. Bye bye.